It's Monday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. Welcome in, everyone. The day after it is. Super Bowl 50 is now in the books, and all kinds of stuff to talk about this evening. With Dave Shannon live from Altoona, Chad States from Huntingdon. Welcome in, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed all the festivities of Super Bowl 50, including the game yesterday, huh?
I really didn't even tune in until I managed to tune in just at the right time. Gaga was doing the anthem.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I missed all. Well, I saw one interview, and it's like, you know what? I'm a fan of football and the game.
Right.
But I don't really need to know that much about John Elway or Peyton Manning or anybody else, all those interviews that they do. And it was just like, no, I'm turning this off.
I wonder what time that pregame actually started. I tuned in about maybe 6:20. 2 o'clock.
Yeah. 2 o'clock.
Oh,
now,
okay.
I'll throw the flip side to you, Dave. And I thought it was interesting because I could use that pregame stuff with my kids to teach them a lot about some of those guys that you and I already know about. So to a certain degree, it kind of played to my favor to have all that stuff on.
So for you, Chad,
and
it was
about
kind of
drinking Budweiser.
Yeah.
Wow.
The other side of that is, I understand, Chad, you were prepping them for the game because I imagine there's some guy who was sitting watching the game yesterday, and his wife probably said, "Who just scored that goal?" I've sat through some of those Super Bowl parties already. Quite frankly, I love being by myself yesterday. But anyhow, Super Bowl 50 is in the books. By the way, Thelma called in last week, if you remember, guys, from Florida. She nailed it, man, with the score, because remember she had that whole sentimental thing for Peyton Manning and the Broncos, even though she's a big Steeler fan, and she called it 24-10. And I thought to myself, okay, she wins. I don't know.
We ought to have her on the show more often, for Pete's sake.
Well, she's threatening to come on a talk show I'm going to be doing because she wants to talk controversy and stuff. So I said, fine, we'll do that. That'll be her prize. Hey, but let's get into it. Let's start with, and I hate to start here, but I got to tell you, when I tuned in about maybe 20 after 6 and I'm watching some of this stuff that's going down, look like obviously it's always a great crowd because, let's face it, Budweiser sends all their people there. The NFL send all their people there. You get these free tickets. I mean, it's just a gas with all the celebrities. But Lady Gaga, my first really good look at her, I think she's pretty classy, and she sang the national anthem probably as well as anybody in the history of the Super Bowl. Would you agree, Dave? I mean, I remember Whitney Houston doing it.
The woman knows how to market herself and understands the audience that she is in and knows exactly what to do at the right time.
Right.
She understood that she was in front of this wide cross-section of America, and she dressed in a manner that was not, Gaga-esque, if you know any of her routine otherwise outside of what she did there yesterday. And this is the second time that she has done something and treated it with all the class and displayed the fact that she has a voice that goes way beyond pop music.
Right.
She first did that when at the Grammys she did Sound of Music. She sang the Sound of Music.
Yeah.
Or maybe that was Academy Awards she did that. But when she did that, Julie Andrews was crying in the audience.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Julie lost her voice years ago.
Nobody understood that this girl, you get pigeonholed.
Yes, much
because
maligned.
you do pop music, and this is the way Gaga sounds. And she came out and did the Sound of Music, and as you remember, Julie Andrews singing that. It was dead on par with that, if maybe not even just a skosh better, and just amazing. So a tip of the cap to her. I expected her to do that because, as I say, she's learned how to do that. And to be honest with you, she made some pauses for effect during that, and
especially for the flyover, obviously for the flyover that they had as well.
And so those kinds of things are really tough to pull off. I got to tip my cap to the Blue Angels for being able to get there at that. That quickly.
Yeah, the pivotal
I'm sure
point.
they rehearsed that. Yeah, but it's still not easy to pull it off.
Well, they're a team of precisionists, that's for sure.
Yeah, and in the end, I prefer that one over and I have a real bone to pick with the Whitney Houston one because I was involved, with women's basketball, and that became the favorite national anthem for women's basketball teams.
Yeah.
And it's so long and so laborious.
Mm-hmm.
And Whitney Houston, is a silly girl, to end up the way her life ended.
Well, that's another subject for another day.
Yeah, to have a beautiful voice like that. But hey, Gaga, hats off to you. I really enjoyed it, and I keep gaining more and more respect for her.
And I do too, because I remember listening to her sing with Tony Bennett, and I tell you what, it was a thrill a minute. She certainly has a voice. Chad, let me just get your impressions real quick. We won't belabor the point, but were you impressed, or maybe your kids' wife impressed with Lady Gaga?
We were all impressed. She transcended the moment, is what she did. But, Dave, I'm going to recant here a little bit to what you had said, in the fact that Whitney Houston did the same thing. Yes, hers was long. Mm-hmm. Yes, hers was, maybe, I don't know. To me, I think that they were both on equal par, because the moment for Lady Gaga was the 50th Super Bowl, a very, very special moment. But let's not forget when Whitney sang hers and what it meant to the entire country because of the Iraqi war that was going on. So to me, both of them are side by side. I don't think you can really separate the other one based on the moments that you presented those on. And again, hats off to Lady Gaga for knowing what that moment meant.
Right.
Because there were others that evening, and not maybe 3-4 hours afterwards,
we'll talk about that
had no clue what that moment meant.
Right. And listen, as I said, I don't want to belabor the point. So, a point well taken. But having said that, Monday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net, just talking a little bit about the opening of the Super Bowl 50. And let's get to the meat and crux of things, guys. Dave Shannon live in Altoona. Chad States, by the way, in Huntingdon. And if you'd like to join us tonight, give us a call, 814-242-4845. That's 814-242-4845. Off the jump, by the way, Dave, and then Chad, you can jump in there, Manning. He just looked like a gunslinger. And as I shared with Dave off air before we got started, Chad, did you get the impression from the beginning? He was destined they basically scored on a 34-yard field goal, but they marched down the field in that first series. Were you guys kind of surprised or amazed? Let's start with Chad first, then Dave.
No, I'm never. I always throw away the first series of every football game for both teams because those are 15 to 16 scripted plays that you're coming out and you've already game planned for. You're automatically throwing that right at the defense.
Right.
It's the next series that come out as to how do you adjust to what you have seen that really makes a difference. So, no, I was not surprised. I wouldn't have been surprised if Carolina went right down and scored a touchdown, because that's typically the way football games seem to work. Peyton Manning, almost threw an interception, at the 6-yard line in that same series. So, they were one step away from a pick six. But, no, I'm not surprised to see, Denver do what they just did there in that very first drive.
How about you, Dave, on that first drive there? What'd you think?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised either. I maybe just a little bit, but then again, in looking back at the drive, there were never any of those, super long passes that were being completed, and those are the ones that are going to beat you.
Yeah.
In the end, and it didn't really see that kind of thing going on in Carolina's defense. And I agree with Chad. There is that aspect of just about every game. I was never more impressed this year than I was with the Steelers, because not every, but quite a few of the games, they came out opening drive and just marched right down the field. It was I think we have a chance of winning this one.
Yeah.
But then again, you do have to keep that in the back of your head, because those first 15 or maybe as high as the first 20 plays, everybody knows exactly what's going on. And then you have to adjust, and start calling plays based on what you see the defense doing.
Okay.
And one of the great things about Manning, though, is he's good at reading defenses for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
He can tell when they're switching out of a blitz and going back into a zone or whatever. And he's really good at that and can audible at the line and make those changes. And he's really good at that.
So Denver jumps in there. They get that first field goal. They're up 3-0. Then Cam gets the ball, Chad, and right off the bat, he's overthrowing receivers. And then the Panthers really didn't have a running game to speak of in that first series. I mean, were you worried about that? It looked a little shaky. Do you think he was nervous, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, I damn well know he was nervous. There's no doubt about that. He was nervous. When you come up and you throw a ball, 15 feet over your receiver's head in the first attempt,
yeah,
I mean, it would be like a pitcher throwing, 10 feet over his catcher in a World Series. That happens. Where dragging him out so far out of the strike zone that
and it has happened.
Sit back and wonder. It's the same thing. There's and it's okay to be nervous. I mean, that's a big stage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely. I mean, all of us would be nervous.
I would be certainly nervous just singing the national anthem. But go ahead.
The fact that Denver shut down. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
The fact that Denver shut down that running game so early did shock me.
Yeah, it did.
What it showed me is that the secondary wasn't afraid of their receivers. They were able to go man to man, and that let the linebackers and defensive line. I'm sure that Wade Phillips knew right there after the first series that this has the makings to be something really special for our defense because you can see it.
Yeah, obviously, Wade Phillips has had 2 weeks, Dave, to really take a look at the video. Of course, even though, Cam and his boys were 17-1, 18-1, or whatever it was, he designed obviously somebody that was going to shadow Newton the whole game, and it turned out to be Von Miller in that first series, or actually within the first 10 minutes, stripping that ball from Newton, which resulted in a score. Did that amaze you? Because I was watching Miller, and I'm like, he's king on Cam. If Cam runs, Miller's going to be there. If he's rushing Cam as well.
Oh, yeah. No. And to be honest with you, I wasn't really surprised. There is, and I think, same thing you're talking about, the 2 weeks to prepare.
Yeah.
And if you watch, Cam has, along with the happy-go-lucky guy, at times is the happy-go-lucky holding the ball in your hand.
Yeah, right.
And I feel pretty certain that there was a lot said in the meetings that's something they had to exploit.
Yeah.
Try to get the ball away from him whenever he can, because there's a lot of times that he just doesn't protect it the way he should. And that's what happened to him there, because if you noticed, he had that, first of all, the timing, I don't think he expected Miller to be there at that particular time. And he had the ball in one hand down at his side.
Yeah.
And so, it's like that. I think they were ready for that. And it's like, try to strip that whenever you can.
And I found it interesting, Chad, that those two guys were drafted 1 and 2, respectively, Newton and then Miller, 5 years ago? And it's kind of interesting as I watched that whole thing kind of unfold. Then the Panthers come back. They put together that 73-yard touchdown after Denver led 10-0. And Stewart actually put the Panthers on the board with that touchdown. And even though I still didn't feel like the Panthers were playing their game. I mean, early on, could you tell that they were really out of, out of whack?
Yeah, because that drive wasn't smooth at all either.
That defense was all over them.
It was riddled with mistakes. The fact that they scored was just... there was a couple penalties thrown in there. And, it was not an easy drive for Carolina to convert on. So, absolutely, you could tell that the game was being dictated by Denver's defense. Now, conversely, Carolina's defense, let's not take anything away from them.
No.
They did a fabulous job. They held down, the Denver offense to what it was. I think it was less than 200 yards.
Yeah, 194, I think it was. Yeah,
that's right. So they did an absolutely fantastic job. They just were not nearly as opportunistic as what Denver's was. But you could tell early on that Cam had never seen anything like Wade Phillips threw at him. Yeah. And that was those two edge rushers. He had no answers for Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware. None.
Yeah. Isn't that funny, Dave? How Cam the week before was saying, "You ain't never seen nothing like me." Meanwhile, he ain't never seen anything like Denver this whole season. It's not like they play in the toughest division either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that was something I had a couple of conversations with friends after the game was over, and the fact that it just pointed out, and I joked about this earlier during Monday Night Sports Talk about how.
We're getting a windstorm here or something.
Yeah, we are in a windstorm. But at any rate, the fact that the NFC.
Yeah.
The NFC just isn't, right now, the way things are going.
Yeah.
It's at a position where it's AFC's got the better stuff all the way around.
No doubt. Yeah.
And it's a little bit easier to go 16-1 in the NFC than what it may be to go.
When you've got teams like Dallas and you got teams like the Giants and also Philadelphia.
Yeah,
I mean, that's clear minority.
That's just goes
no
on
brainer.
And on. Atlanta.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, Chad, having said that, okay, now the Panthers put something together. They get a little momentum. Whenever Manning went down that first time, Chad, and the Panthers won that challenge, didn't that look like the play where Manning looked like he wanted to go down during the Steeler game and then get back up and run? I mean, was it similar?
It was similar. I mean, I don't think Manning ever has the thought that I can run, especially at age 40.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think any of us have the ability to think, hey, I'm just going to go for a run today, especially when there's, 7, 8, 9 people that are 300 pounds or better going to take my head off.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that necessarily crossed his mind, but,
right.
He gets back up. He's just trying to make a play. It's a Super Bowl. It's the last game he's going to play in.
Right.
And it's a Super Bowl, so he's just getting back up, trying to see what he can do.
Yeah. So Super Bowl 50 is what we're talking about tonight on Monday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. Greg Banks in the studio. Chad States, Huntingdon, Dave Shannon live via Skype in Altoona. And Panthers, by the way, used up their last challenge. This was incredible, man. They used, 2 challenges in the first half. And I thought to myself, when Rivera called that second one, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Did anybody else seem surprised by that, Dave? I mean,
no, I understood. When you look at it, I understood why he did it, because it was an effort to, that was going to give Denver a pretty good break.
Yeah.
And he ended up winning it, so it set them back.
Yeah.
And, I think that was, I don't really want to give them anything that they didn't earn. And so that was a good challenge. And to be honest with you, he got totally screwed on the contrary. That was a catch.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know what the hell replays they were watching.
Yeah.
I never saw the ball in every angle that I saw it that CBS gave us.
Yeah.
That there was any point where that ball touched the ground.
Did you see that, Chad? Did it look like
it? Actually, I did see the ball touch the ground, so I will. Dave, if you look at it when he's kind of rolling up
near his elbow.
Now listen.
Yeah.
The thing is, the ball touches the ground, but his arm is underneath it at that point in time.
Okay.
And that's okay. And then as he's coming back up around, the ball kind of squirts loose. Now, at that point in time, that's when you've got to look and see whether the ball hits the ground, because if it caused him to lose control of it and then it falls out of his arm. But here's the thing. We're talking about something that the NFL has no idea what they're talking about.
Okay.
They have no idea what a catch is. So how can we sit here and really say, hey, screwed, not screwed, when they don't know what a catch is?
Well, that's true.
Would I have counted that on the playground? Yeah, I would have. So,
okay. It's sort of like that Des Bryant catch from last year. Again, it's debatable what's a catch, not a catch. I guess it's really –
well, they said
they got so many cameras.
Credit, Greg.
Yeah.
The NFL has said there are going to be hard, fast definitions.
Okay.
That is something they're working on for next season, because that vaguely worded, football move.
Yeah.
If you catch it and make a football move, then it's a catch. And it's like, what the hell is a football move?
Right. Yeah.
And so they're going to try to redefine it, make it more more specific.
It has to be.
As to what it means that the receiver actually had possession.
Yeah, it almost has to be. Hey, meanwhile, State College kid makes history, actually. You got to feel good when you saw Jordan Norwood running down the sideline for the longest punt return in the Super Bowl history, setting up that next field goal. But what was your feeling on that, Chad, and then Dave?
I didn't know what the heck was going on, because Carolina stopped.
Yeah, didn't he look like he
bumped off of one of the guys, and they were like looking at him. And he's like, "Well, I'm just going to take off," because they thought it was a fair catch situation,
and he didn't. Yeah,
and it clearly wasn't. And I actually thought they just got done talking, maybe 10 minutes earlier. There's never been a punt return for a touchdown.
How about that?
Taylor's the one who came, very close in Super Bowl 23.
Right.
And Norwood I thought he was going to get it. It was very, very close. But Carolina quit on that play.
They did.
It just made a stupid mistake.
They got frozen, man. What do you think, Dave? I mean, I didn't see any indication that
He didn't make any motions.
Well, maybe they thought we're going to get close to him. This guy has to be calling a fair catch. He's got to see that we're on him. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what happened. And they got frozen.
Or the other thing we don't know, because I don't know that they ever played it back with any audio that you could hear. I don't know if the sideline was saying back off, fair catch, back
or fire,
off.
Something like that.
That's the one thing that I can think would make those guys do that, because that's just so unnatural to see guys stop and actually almost pull back away. Mm-hmm. And you almost have to think that was being yelled at them from the sideline.
Well, could that be
because your instinct is to tackle the guy?
Yeah, could that be one of one of the plays, Chad? When people got to the water cooler this morning, they said, "Well, if they wouldn't have, Panthers would have had a chance. If Norwood would have not run that ball back as far as he did." And that would have been called a fair catch. Do you think that would have determined the game a little bit? Because that and a couple other plays?
There's so many what ifs. What if Cotchery catches that football? Yeah. Does Cam Newton fumble after that? You could play the what if game in sports all day long. But,
right.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything.
That's true.
You've got to make the plays that are presented in front of you, and you got to deal with the adversity that's presented to you. And Carolina did not do a good job of that in any point in that game.
Well, you know what? It was an interesting first half. Broncos led it 13-7, but I won't also forget the fact that Newton was sacked by Ware to end that first half. Like you said, Ware and Miller were just bum rushing him all freaking day, and he just seemed to be sort of out of sorts. But having said that, I think one of you, either Dave or Chad, mentioned offense. Well, the Broncos had 194 yards, according to the records here. Newton completed 18 of 44 passes. Both quarterbacks threw interceptions, lost fumbles, and there were only two offensive touchdowns, one for a 1-yarder and the other for a 2-yard rush. So that was how they wrapped up pretty much the first half. But moving on to the second half, Dave, was there anything that stuck out in your mind in that second half other than we'll talk about near the end of the game there.
Here's one bottom line too, and that those stats that you just brought up are very important in that.
Right.
To be honest with you, the touchdowns that were scored by Denver were both defensive touchdowns.
Yes, they were. Right.
Because all the offense did was take that in 7 yards.
Yeah.
To get the second touchdown, and the first touchdown was defensive. So there was never an offensive touchdown scored in the game. Technically, there was because the offense took it in.
Exactly.
But, where they got the ball in the field and everything, that was defensive. And there's another one. You talk about people standing around or pulling away from something. What the hell's Cam Newton doing watching that ball on the ground?
Well, I'm going to get that in second here, but I had to look back here just to see who did lead in rushing, and it was C.J. Anderson. He had 90 yards on 23 touches yesterday, Chad. That seems low to me. But then again,
that's probably about right. But I'll tell you what stood out to me.
What's that?
In that whole entire second half was Denver was at a 3rd and 5 or 6.
Yeah.
With about 5 minutes to go.
Right.
And they were on their side. I think they were around maybe their 35 or 36 yard line.
Mm-hmm.
And what do? They hand the ball off.
Yeah.
And I looked at the clock again, and I thought, man.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Chad. They
wholeheartedly know that Carolina can't do a damn thing offensively.
No.
I'm just going to hand the ball. To me, that was almost like a slap in the face.
Well,
just to say, here we go. I'm going to hand the ball off.
Yeah.
Let's see what you can do, knowing they couldn't do anything at all. That play stood out to me and will always stand out to me in that game.
And that's not a bad strategy, though, Dave, because you know what? Again, it eats up a lot of clock, and the bottom line is they weren't really making any neither team, offensively, as we mentioned before, made a lot of momentum on the ground at all. So as far as I'm concerned, that was just another measure to eat up some clock. But let me ask you this. Von Miller.
The problem is about that, Greg, though.
Yeah.
When you get into that mode, Yeah, that's what the goal is. But if you can't get the first down, if you go 3 and out, what the hell good is it handing off the ball? That means you only burned like maybe 2 minutes off the clock.
Here again, I think I heard it said several times yesterday. Wade Phillips, they were just going to really, at some given point in those last 5 to 6 minutes, they're going to rely on Denver's Bronco because that's what got them there. I mean, on the Denver Broncos defense. Because that's what got them there. And they had enough confidence on the defense. I don't really think, and I think if you were to ask Peyton Manning today, could you get anything clicking at all? I think the last 6 minutes, he'd tell you, man, I knew that my defense would stand up. You know what I mean?
I would have did the same exact thing.
Yeah.
It's the smartest play. I mean, the defense at that point in time,
that
Denver defense was the best unit in that game, and maybe the best unit we have seen in any number of Super Bowls that we can think of.
I tell you what, I don't think
that's what I'm saying. Ed is a slap in the face to Carolina.
Well,
to just say,
here
again, going to hand the ball off.
Yep.
Good luck.
Here again, it goes back to the division play, as we mentioned, NFC versus AFC. The other side of that is, had that been Tom Brady, I don't think they would have done that. See, but Cam had already proven, since he's in that weak division, and also that he was not getting anything going yesterday, he'd already proven he was not going to be a threat in the last 6 minutes. There wasn't going to be a real threat that Panthers were going to score. And then all hell broke loose when Von Miller got loose again and knocked the ball from Newton to put the ball on the 4-yard line. And I said, hallelujah. I looked up in the stands. I saw Eli Manning saying, oh, shit, meaning my brother's going to get another ring.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, the Broncos go on to score. They go for the 2 points. Now, that was one given time, and then they go on to win the Super Bowl. So tell me, Dave, as you had mentioned, why didn't Cam go for that ball? Did he give up too?
I have never seen a reaction by a quarterback in that position, that was anywhere similar to what he did.
Do you know what we're talking about, Chad? Case. When Cam fumbled that ball, when Miller knocked that ball out of his hand, and it looked like
it was
Cam
going back to pass. And he knocked it out before he ever got to throw.
It looks like Cam could have jumped on the ball. Chad, did it look like he hesitated to you?
I don't think he knew what to do. I don't think he
knew what
right. to do.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, he was probably. I mean, he was blindsided that he was making a pass. That ball gets tipped out.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness gracious, what's happening?
He should have jumped on it.
So you've got to react real quick, and you look down, and
what was
there's
his
all these
instinct?
bodies flying around.
Yeah.
There's that football down there. Now, typically a quarterback doesn't go down on that in a regular season game or whatever. But this is a Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
You got to think about the moment you're in.
Yeah.
But I don't think he knew what to do. I really don't.
Okay. So, because I kind of, when they slowed it down several times today, I had to look in his eyes. He saw the ball. He looked like he wanted to go for it. Then he thought better, like, oh, hell no. I don't know if that's because of an injury or he thought maybe somebody would knock it behind him and he could then jump on it. But you know what it seemed like, Dave? It seemed like when we used to play sandlot football, like back in the old days, down at the field here, the City League field, by the way, Chad. We used to play ball down there, get with the older guys, and we played rough and tumble. We played actual tackle football. Guys got broken arms and stuff. Like when the quarterback would throw it over the middle, and you did not want to catch it because as soon as you caught it, your head would be taken off. That's what it seemed like Cam was thinking.
I think the other thing, I noticed one time they did a slow-mo replay of that.
Yeah.
And what Chad said is exactly right. He just did not, at that point in time, and you would think that for as long as he's been playing the game at any different level,
right, that
you would have an instinct built into you that says, I got to get that because the ball's laying there loose. And if you can see it, then you have to give it a shot.
Right.
And his instincts just totally failed him.
Yes,
it was
did.
Like, I just don't know what to do right now. He had that befuddled look on his face. Like,
And then the rest of it was history as we watched, of course, the celebration begin with the Broncos. Cam then kind of looked like he was throwing a little temper tantrum, and then I watched Jordan Norwood. What was his name? Not Jordan Norwood. What was the guy's name they gave the Giant hell a couple weeks ago. They got into a fight during the season. He was
the guy that
safety.
Beckham took out.
Yeah, the guy that Beckham took out. I saw him on the sidelines. He was bawling his eyes out. I mean, obviously, they really felt that they had the kind of season that they could win it all. But again, you got an old vet like Wade Phillips on the other sideline, Chad. You realize that guy was sitting at a Walmart this time last year. I don't even think he had a team. He was like one of 21 defensive coaches without a job at one time.
We could have been sitting at that same Walmart with Wade Phillips for crying out loud. He might have been a greeter at the damn door for crying out loud. 22 other defensive coordinators were chosen over Wade Phillips.
Wade Phillips,
To me, that's amazing because Wade has a great track record of being a very, very good defensive coordinator.
Right.
I don't know if people look at him that he's past his prime or whatever, but the man knows what he's doing for crying out loud. And while I did not like his dad,
Bum Phillips,
Bum Phillips, for obvious reasons, Wade has done nothing. I have a huge amount of respect for what Wade brings to the table.
Yeah, kudos
and I'm very happy that he's able to get a ring.
And I am too. Kudos to him because here again, man, Dave, and I can't tell you, I know that you're in a tight circle of NFL coaches, scouts, and you're talking with administrators, management. There could have been a buzz about Wade, like, hey, like Chad said, maybe the game passed him by. Or, how somebody gets a bug up their ass and it's like, I'd never hire him for a job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And somebody took the chance.
Anybody that thinks the game has passed anybody by, all you have to do, folks, is look at Dick LeBeau and how long he's been, involved. And I'll tell you what, he's one of the most innovative guys.
Even at his age.
And what I'll tell you what, the other thing that you have to always give a defensive coordinator credit for is recognizing your talent and developing a defense that plays to the talent that you have. And that's what he did. It's like, this is what I have, and I know I can do this.
Hey,
the game never passed him by.
Well, is there any question, Chad, in your mind, or even Dave, who the MVP of that game was? I mean, I know maybe sentimentally we might have wanted Peyton to win it, but was there any kind of idea? Chad, did you have any?
No, that had to have been a unanimous vote.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Anybody who voted for anybody any differently is an idiot. There's just no way it could have been anybody any different than Von Miller.
Anybody different would have probably produced one of those freaking ass commercials they did. And we'll talk about that near the end of the show because I want to get your take on that as we talk a little bit about Super Bowl 50 here on Monday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net. Greg Banks in the studio, Dave Shannon live from Altoona and Chad States in Huntingdon. Let me ask you this, guys. It seems like for the last couple of years when these teams get to the Super Bowl, they just don't come back. Do you see either one of these teams coming back in the next, say, 2 or 3 years, Chad, first, and then Dave?
I don't see Denver coming back next year.
Yeah.
The thing is, you had this team this year, then you never have it again. You're going to lose players. You're going to gain players.
Right.
Something's going to happen. So the dynamic is never the same after the season, and they don't care what team you play on.
Is this sort of like baseball, Dave?
Yeah,
is it kind of like free agency and stuff, Dave? Or is that? And do you see these guys coming back? Either one of these teams?
I think Carolina's pretty well set. I can see them getting back to the game again because once again, looking at the NFC, unless there's some major changes to some teams in the NFC. I'm not sure. I like Seattle. Seattle is a good team. They could probably be back in the hunt. And if Green Bay can play level-headed through an entire season, but after those three, who else is there right now based on what we saw this year in the NFC that can do it? And with that in mind, Carolina, I think, can play with both the Green Bay Packers and also the Seattle Seahawks. And the thing is there in those two cases, Seattle and Green Bay, is their defense going to be able to provide anything like what Denver did yesterday?
Right.
And I'm going to give you one out of the NFC, and man, does this hurt. This really, really hurts a lot, but it's because they were hurt is why I'm going to give it to you, and that's Dallas.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, Dallas's roster is loaded, and guess what? Because of the injuries that they had this year, they have a very high draft pick.
Yeah.
Be wary of, and granted, it hurts. It really hurts, guys.
For you to say that because
but
it
Dallas,
hurts me to
Dallas
hear
is
it.
set up for a good to have a good run here.
Right. Okay. Hey, well, speaking of Dallas, and I don't know if this is a rumor, but let me ask you this. After watching Cam's little tantrum, and I'm sure there were reasons for him to get up and leave that press conference last night, I heard that I could actually hear in the background the Denver Bronco players who were talking loudly in the same conference, talking about, he couldn't pass the ball. They were talking about Cam the whole time, and he finally got tired of answering questions, and he got up and left. There's a problem here.
Yeah,
he's the MVP of the league. He's now the face. Dave, do you think this guy, obviously, he must have some highs and lows, man.
Well, if you're going to be a leader,
right?
This is the whole thing, and that's what everybody subscribes to him, that he is a leader of the Carolina Panthers, and that is damn poor leadership.
Oh, it is.
Because you have to take the bad with the good, and I know it was a season where they had way more good than they had bad.
Mm-hmm.
You only have one loss in the entire season, and to show that you have – and what were the things we've been talking about? How many of the older folks that are fans of football just hated the way he carried on,
exactly.
Right, and those types of things, and now they're vindicated because he goes up to the media after the game and acts like a pouting child.
Well, and the only really classy thing that I think he did was he approached Peyton Manning after the game and congratulated him. Now that was cool. I think that was really cool. But having said that, Chad, this guy obviously, he wins the MVP. I'm watching this on CBS Saturday night. I forget what that show was called, something Honors, where they were honoring the NFL players and they were handing out their hardware. Of course, Ron Rivera could not be there, and neither was Cam, to accept their awards because Ron was the Coach of the Year, Cam was the MVP. I never heard Cam say, Chad, I want to thank God. Not that he has to. He never said, I want to thank my teammates. He just, he talked about all these other people, I think his coaching staff, but never acknowledged his team. What's that tell you about a player?
Well, it's not good, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Here's where I'm disappointed with Cam and the fact that he ran, and I defended him.
Yeah,
I defended the guy last week. I defended him the week before.
You did. I did too.
He ran his trap and wasn't afraid to say, "Hey, listen, shut me up."
Yeah.
I'm saying this, but you had better shut me up. Well, guess what?
They did.
Denver shut him up.
Yes, they did.
So and at that point, at the end of the game, now he's going to go visit Peyton Manning at the end of the game.
And he did.
That's protocol. That's standard.
Okay.
But even up to the time of his press conference,
mm-hmm.
he was still Cam Newton to me.
Yeah.
3 minutes into the press conference, which is all you have to be there,
right?
He got up and left. And after I heard it,
mm-hmm.
he was no longer Cam Newton. He became Fig Newton, because he was soft and left a nasty aftertaste in my mouth after watching that thing.
I like that.
Well done.
I can't top that, Chad. So let me move on and ask Dave this question, which we'll talk about these Super Bowl commercials. But Dave, before we came on the air, I likened Cam's attitude to Johnny Manziel. These young people, now there's a generation of people that seem entitled, and maybe they're children born of affluence, and they've been given, and we talked about this last year, Chad, some of these kids were never properly handled in, Pee Wee football or junior high football. They were never told no. They might have been academically ineligible to play, but their coaches let them play anyhow. Do you think that's the problem here, Dave?
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about Manziel, too, because here's Johnny Manziel. His dad goes on television the other day and says, I'm afraid he's not going to make it to his 24th birthday. Well, hell, his 24th birthday is in December. And you're the father. You should have put you should have locked this kid down. Yeah. You know what I mean? Back in the day, stop giving him these brand new cars and all this other crap, and don't let him get in your face. Because I understand on the golf course, Johnny was getting in his dad's face all the time. So I'm seeing a pattern here, Dave, and then Chad.
Yeah, I've always referred to that as pampered athlete syndrome, because first of all, especially when you're at a major college program and you were probably the big dude in high school,
right?
So going back to the time when you were 15 years old, from that point on, you've been pampered because you have a physical ability, you have an athletic ability. And I'll tell you what, you're talking about guys in their mid-20s, so they have at least 10, if not more years of that type of treatment. And maybe not necessarily because of society in general, but just because of who they are and what they do. Mm-hmm. They end up being pampered way too much during the course of their life. And then they end up getting a reality check like Newton got on Sunday, and he just wasn't prepared for it. It kind of reminds me of the Republican presidential race, and you got Donald Trump who says all he does is win.
Yeah. And then he got beat in Iowa, and what was he saying then? But Chad, piggybacking on that, again, you heard the news about Manziel last week, and then you saw what happened to Chad. How do you put the hammer down on these guys? Whose role is it to tell them, look, man, especially when you're playing among the big boys, the adults. Is that the league's job, the coach's job? Whose job is that?
It was the parents' job when he was growing up.
Exactly. We understand that, but go ahead.
Well, that's where it is now. The kid has no idea what to do because he's never been put in a failure type of situation.
True.
Where you've had to be humbled. Yeah. And you've had to come back from that adversity and know what to do to deal with it. Yeah. And that's what you're looking at with some of these young men. Cam has only ever tasted success.
That's true.
Johnny Manziel has only ever tasted success and money. They've never failed at anything. Yeah. And you don't know how to react until you fail. Mm-hmm. The problem with Johnny is his failure might be his first one, might be his last one. And I think that's what his dad's scared about. But his parents are to blame for that, and I'm sorry.
No,
that's where it starts. It starts at home, guys.
Yeah, and you make a very good point because I've been discussing that for the last week about Manziel especially, and I truly believe, I'd rather see the guy get cleaned up or take care of his personal problems. I don't care if I ever see Johnny Manziel in the NFL again, Dave, as long as the guy continues to live and maybe moves on to a half-decent life. What do you think?
Well, it's tough to have sympathy for somebody that, knows they're doing something that's not
with him. I don't sympathize, but I kind of have empathy for him. But go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the type of thing where he's been told about it so many times. He knows what he's doing is wrong because it's, when you're making the police blotter section of the newspaper, your life is not going down the right path.
Yeah.
And, I would have liked to have seen him be able to play in the NFL without all of these kinds of distractions to see if he was actually able to do anything. Because to me, he's fighting a lot of issues in that. First of all, for me, he's really short.
Yeah.
He's not Doug Flutie short, but he's short compared to what today's quarterbacks are.
Right.
Because you got to look at Roethlisberger and Cam Newton and see what the prototype NFL quarterback is now.
Yeah.
It's got to be a big guy. It's carrying around, between 220 and 250.
Yeah.
A healthy 220, 250 on a 6'4" frame.
What's Johnny weigh? $180? I mean, I don't even think he's close to 200, is he? Seriously, I don't think he's that big.
He sure doesn't look that way.
No.
I don't know. I don't know about his.
Well, let me ask Chad. Chad, does the guy have really any talent, though? I mean, was he living off of this thing at A&M for these years where he was a freshman Heisman Trophy winner? Because I really never saw, anything in the guy's last couple of years in college that he really did to justify him getting picked up by any NFL team.
Well, I mean,
quite honestly.
Greg, he has talent, or he wouldn't have been on a Division I football roster.
Yeah.
The question is, does he have the talent that transcends his game into the National Football League?
Right.
Because it's different football. There's lots of guys that are great players in college, and their game doesn't transcend into the NFL.
Well, Tim Tebow like Tebow.
Tim Tebow is a classic example of that, where he was one of the best college quarterbacks, leadership-wise, whatever, to get out in the history of college football. You're always going to remember Tim Tebow.
Yeah,
but his game did not translate into NFL success. So because they're two different games.
Yeah.
They're completely two different games.
And I've seen that
shame
before.
on Cleveland.
Yeah.
And Denver at that point in time for not recognizing that and going with the person, or the presumed talent that sits there and not really analyzing it and seeing what it was really all about.
Well, what really kills me is whenever I see these Twitter feeds last week, people like, what was the guy? Honey Badger tweeted Johnny and said, hey, if you need help, dude, like get in touch with me. Or he had guys like Ryan Leaf, of all people, Dave, tweeted him and said, hey, dude, I've been there before, so get in touch with me. I'll help you out. Well, it seems like Johnny has no help. Like all of his friends are gone. You see, when he has the money and he's got the girls around him and everything's flowing real nice in Vegas, everybody wants to hang with Johnny. But now he's like in a pile of shit. All his friends are lost. They aren't really his friends anymore. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah,
That's what's happening with this kid.
And the reason why they're not his friends anymore is, he never wants to admit that there is a problem.
He's got a problem.
And this is the problem with any addict.
Yeah.
No matter what it is you're addicted to, is admitting that that's not good for you to begin with.
Chad, do you know why he went into rehab? Does either one of you ever know why he went into rehab last year?
Because he was forced to.
Yeah, but what was he on?
It was alcohol related.
Okay, alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah. Could he now be on drugs?
If he would have had to have done that on his own, he wouldn't have.
He wouldn't have done it.
Just so much denial that goes on. Now, I did want to bring something up here, and I'll ask Chad first, and then Greg, you can add your 2 cents in. Isn't there a way, and Chad, you make the best point of all that comes from your parents, okay?
Yeah.
But, okay, let's say there was a shortcoming and a failing with the parents. Is it not possible for someone that individual looks up to, right, to collar him and explain to him, that this is what you need to do? Mm-hmm. Yes, this has been tough, and but somebody needs to take him under their wings and say, here's what you need to do.
Well, mentors, coaches,
my guess is that has happened and we don't know it. But Dave, you have to be accepting of that advice.
That's true. Yeah.
That's true.
If you don't want to, somebody can say the words to you.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to listen to
and you don't do it on your own,
it's not going to change your ways of thinking. And let's face it.
Yeah.
That's a lifestyle change for Johnny.
Oh yeah.
And all of us have been faced with, lifestyle changes. Is it tough for me to get on my treadmill and run 3 miles every day? Yes, it is. But it was a lifestyle change that you have to make. And you're either willing to do it or suffer the consequences for not doing stuff like that. And Johnny is not mentally stable enough to be able to know that, hey, this is advice that I have to take. So, you can listen to somebody talk, but if you're not willing to accept the advice, it doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, my take on that too, Chad, and well said, Dave, is simply this. I've been around enough people in my family, my friends who have died from addiction, whether it's alcohol or drugs, who you would coddle and you would probably even do interventions at one time, probably 10, 15 years ago with people, and you get them to where they need to be, okay? But here's the problem. Until they hit rock bottom, seriously, and they really have to hit rock bottom, there's nothing you can do for these people. Johnny Manziel was the kind of person, or is the kind of person, who did that rehab stint because he had to.
Right.
And what did he do as soon as he got back out? He went back to being old Johnny again.
And that's the difference between doing that rehab stint because you had to, as opposed to doing it because you wanted to.
Yeah, and I will
difference there.
I'll share some stuff with you guys personally sometime, but I knew this girl in Johnstown. She's been into drugs probably for 10 or 15 years, and it's a sad situation. And I can't tell you how many times I talked to her parents talked to her, the ministers talked to her, but she still is hooked on drugs. And, we all have come to the conclusion after 15 years, and the woman is almost 40 years old now, that, guess what? There's only 2 things that can happen in this, and it's not going to be very pretty. She's either going to end up in jail or she's going to end up dead. Because you only have a couple of choices. And I think that's where Johnny's dad is obviously concerned, because there's stuff that we don't know that they're not telling us. And I got to believe Johnny's not just on alcohol, man. I think he could have a mental problem. He could have a narcotic problem as well. So enough said on that. I just want to kind of tie that together with Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel, and anybody else out there that needs help. And a lot of that is because, let's face it, we do our kids a disservice when we give them stuff and we enable them. Because when we're dead and gone, if they haven't learned how to take care of themselves, and like we all alluded to, Cam might have a attitude problem because he's always known as a winner. Well, somebody's got to tell him, dude, when you lose, it's all right. Take a deep breath. I mean, hell, how many Super Bowls did Brady, Roethlisberger, perhaps even Manning lose already? You know? So, and they dealt with it. So I hope Cam comes back, and I hope he's fresh. Hey, we'll talk about some other stuff here in a minute, but let me get to this. Hot stove information, Dave. Anything on the Pirates that you know other than they'll go to camp in 9 days?
No, it's there's a lot of things that have to play out. I'm waiting. I'm anxious to see what Tyler Glasnow oh geez.
Are the Pirates aggressively looking for a left-handed reliever though? I mean, because I keep hearing that rumor that that's what Nutting wants them to do. That's what Clint needs. Is that left-hander going to be that important in rotation? Or in their scheme of things. Seriously.
By the way, Jameson Tyone was the other pitcher.
Okay.
I'm waiting to see him in Glasnow.
Okay.
And what they can provide to the team.
Right.
I have to be honest with you. I don't know that there's a whole lot of issues there.
Yeah.
In the bullpen that they can't get through. I don't know that left-handed reliever thing is that important at this time. I think another thing, I'm going to be curious to see how it plays out because I've said this and, talked to some other people who basically agreed that, the plan that's sitting there right now is to have Jay Hay at second.
Right.
And you end up with
Kung is
Jordy
coming
Mercer at short.
Right.
And Jung Ho Gung at third base.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be curious to see how Josh Harrison does at second base.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the one, I'll tell you what, I like Mercer.
Yeah.
Jordy Mercer is a quality shortstop in my opinion.
Okay.
And he's the type of guy can hit 270, 280 for you, and that, hey, I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll take that out of my shortstop.
All right.
So, the first base issue, that's going to be there for a while because Jaso that they picked up, I don't know that, it's not a native position for him either.
No.
And no matter, I still do not buy into this. I am sick and tired of people talking about Sean Rodriguez and what a defensive player he is at first base. Yeah. I don't see it. Yeah, I really don't.
Yeah, well, they got him signed again, so... and I'm sure they'll use him as an accessory or auxiliary, and because he plays the outfield and first base, correct? I mean, matter of fact, he even plays infield. So,
Yeah, they moved him around different places. I don't see him as that good of a defensive player.
Right.
The one guy that's there that they do have, who I'd really love to see, go back to his days when he had really good seasons is Morse. If Michael Morse could, pick it up because, first of all, he can play first.
Okay.
That is a native position to him.
All right.
And if he can do that and hit at the same time, wow, that'd be a great that would solve a big problem for the Pirates. I'm always amazed when I see Morse at the plate. And you realize, you watch a game, and maybe it's subtle to some people, but I sit here and when I see him at the plate, it always goes through my mind. I said, my God, that guy's big.
Yeah.
Holy man, is he tall. And he's just an imposing figure there at the plate, and I hope he can hit the ball because, wow, that would be great.
Yeah, Monday Night Sports Talk, Greg Banks in the studio. Dave Shannon, by the way, Altoona. We got Chad States in Huntingdon. By the way, you can call us, 814-242-4845, 814-242-4845. We've been spending a lot of time with Super Bowl 50. But, Chad, I've been watching the Penn State Nittany Lions. I watched them on the Big Ten Network on Saturday, man. I don't know, but it looks like ain't nobody going to touch these guys.
No, I agree with you. they looked fantastic. And even in the matches that they lost, Greg, they out-wrestled the guys aside from the heavyweight, they out-wrestled the guys that won.
Right.
Kale has developed this philosophy of offensive wrestling, which is a great thing to see. Go out there and score more points and be aggressive in doing so.
Yeah.
And, it's really paying off. 3 of their bouts they won by bonus points.
Yeah.
Ohio State knew they couldn't let any of that happen, and they were going to be in big trouble. And you just can't stop them. It's success breeds success, and that's exactly what you're seeing. And plus, that room is filled with so many great wrestlers that for them to go out and wrestle another team, it's kind of less than what they do on a daily basis in the practice room. So,
well, yeah, you're right, because they have such competition and challenges probably before every match every week. You know what's cool? I was watching the Big Ten Network during that Ohio State Penn State wrestling match, and I was in awe because as they panned the crowd, which I think was over almost 16,000 people. As they panned that crowd, I'm like, that dude used to be an old wrestler. I was picking people out of the crowd. Old wrestlers don't die. We just multiply, man. I don't know what that deal is, but now they're all coming out to watch Penn State and probably have been for the last 30 or 40 years. Having said that, Chad, I don't know if you made it, but Huntingdon just barely got through the District 6 AA duels the other night. Talk about that. What'd you hear about Huntingdon?
Well, it was a heck of a good match, in all honesty.
Yeah.
They had to come down and win the final 3 matches
against Mount Union,
the
right?
Final 4 potentially against Mount Union, and they were able to do so. And hats off to John Mikett and his crew for recapturing the District 6 title.
Oh yeah.
And moving on to states. When they needed to get bonus point wins, they got them. And again, John and his assistant coach, Eric Shea, and the whole staff that's underneath them have really developed a nice attitude in these wrestlers of be dominant on top, look to score bonus points, look to put your opponent into a pinning position, or, if you're not able to do that, let them up and take them down, trying to get a tech fall and work for those team bonus points because it can make the difference in the match. And that's exactly what you saw as Huntingdon defeated Mount Union by 1 point, 35-34.
Do these kids from Huntingdon watch Penn State wrestling? I would imagine they do,
yeah.
man.
I mean, absolutely. I don't know how you couldn't.
Yeah, that was...
and actually, some of them go over to the matches, but more importantly, the coaches watch it.
That's what I'm saying. So a lot of the styles,
absolutely right. It helps. And, success breeds success.
It sure does. And we wish them the best of luck as they move on. In the upcoming individual districts as well. And let's see, then hopefully get a couple guys into the states. Hey, have you heard anything about Jacob Oliver at all? You think he'll be in postseason tournaments, obviously, we hope?
Yeah, it would take a minor miracle to hold that kid out of the individual tournament. I don't think he's going to wrestle in the state duels tournament.
Okay.
I believe they're going to hold him out for that. Rumor has it, though, that if they needed him on Saturday night against Mount Union, they would have used him.
Oh, really? Okay.
It came down to they didn't need the
him.
Final match was forfeited. They didn't need it because they were up by 7.
Yeah.
So they just forfeited to wait and moved on. But he will be available. He will be out there to make a return trip to Hershey, and this time to try to capture gold. All right.
Mr. Shannon, I know you got to be watching live action tonight of the Anaheim Ducks and the Pittsburgh Penguins at Consol Energy Center. What's the score, man, and how are those Penguins looking these days?
I'll tell you what, the beginning of this game was one of the most impressive starts to a game that I've seen the Penguins have all year. And if I can borrow a phrase from the guy that I admire as a hockey broadcaster, Mike Lang, they have been buzzing like bees around a hive. Woo! It is unfreaking believable.
Yeah.
I don't think Anaheim knew what hit them at the start. The Penguins went up 2-0.
Yeah.
And then there was a goal by Anaheim with around a minute left to go in the first period to make it 2-1. And right after that, and the preceding face-off, that the Penguins got control of the puck. Carl Hagelin gets his first goal as a Penguin. And his speed was never more evident on that. And he backhanded a shot, top shelf, right over the goalie. And the Penguins have the lead. 3-1 after 1, and Connor Sheary picked up a goal along with Chris Letang so far.
Let me ask you this quick question then, man. Are the Penguins and the Ducks playoff locks? I mean, people were asking that question especially about the Ducks, but I don't know. What do you think about the Penguins? Are they locked to get into the playoffs? Because, man, we need the points, man.
Oh, man, don't start with that. Jeez.
I
it's
know.
February. They got 2 months of hockey to play yet.
Okay. Well, I'm just asking.
They are going to be in the playoffs.
Right.
And it's just a question of what position that they're going to be.
Okay.
And now there's a little bit of me here. I'm assuming, no major injuries between now and then.
Right.
But I'll tell you what.
You got Malkin out already,
even though Malkin is not in there,
okay,
they are playing this game, and it's like they are not missing him at the moment.
Well, Hagelin's in there, and I tell you, he's been looking really good. So he was a good pickup for the Penguins. I mean, at the right time, too. I mean,
absolutely.
Obviously.
Well, what you have now is a guy that complements Phil Kessel.
Okay.
I think Phil Kessel has actually had to hold his speed back.
Yeah.
Because Malkin, although he is fast, is not on a level that Phil Kessel is.
Right.
And now Kessel has a mate to go down there and just scream down the ice.
Mm-hmm.
And Malkin can get there when he gets there and clean up the trash. If Hagelin and Kessel miss, there's getting Malkin to knock it in.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. No, the Penguins are in the postseason. They're a lock in my mind.
All right, well, we'll talk more about that coming up next week. And on future Monday Night Sports Talks here on the airnetwork.net. And Chad, let me ask you first, man. What was the best commercial you saw on the Super Bowl? What'd you like
honestly,
the most?
I thought it was the first one, the Kevin Hart one with his daughter.
Okay.
That one
That
cracked
was
me
pretty,
up. I thought that was, I just look at that guy and I laugh.
Well, that.
I thought that was the best one.
That was kind of funny because it was sort of like a take on a movie I saw with Mike Epps and, no, it wasn't. It was Will Smith and, what's the little guy that plays Mama? I can't even remember the comedian's name. They did the same thing in a movie. Martin Lawrence. Yeah, similar to that. Only they pulled out guns on the guy. Dave, do you have a favorite commercial on?
Well, since that one's out of the way, I'm going to say I love the Sheep singing "Somebody to Love."
I love that too.
Yeah,
I did.
That was
number
favorite.
2 for me.
Well, let me ask you.
Right.
Okay, let me ask both of you. Chad, what was the Kevin Hart commercial? What were they selling?
Good question.
They were selling a car. Dave, what were the Sheep selling?
A truck.
Yeah, Ridgeline, Honda truck. And matter of fact, Honda, I think this is the first time they or Kia, not Kia, it was another car company that actually advertised on the Super Bowl. Remember, these were $5 million a piece. And let me just throw mine in there. The worst one I saw was a Colgate commercial, sort of like a PSA about turning off the faucet. And I'm like, my God, I thought it was about Flint, Michigan there for a second. I'm like, what the hell's that got to do with toothpaste?
Yeah, my worst one was Jeb Bush.
Oh, okay, they ran
Jeb
that?
Bush fought ants in the Super Bowl.
What was the worst?
That god-awful creature of dog, monkey, and baby.
Oh, my God, what the hell was that puppy baby monkey thing, man? What was that?
Horrible. I was scared.
What the hell were they selling there? Doritos?
Mountain Dew Mountain Dew Kickstart.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Yep.
That's enough to kill you, that stuff, so don't even drink that shit. I'm telling you, man. It'll kickstart your heart and it'll put you in your grave. Oh, now I'm probably never going to get a sponsor from Mountain Dew.
Yeah, way to go. There goes the Pepsi sponsorship.
I know. I'm screwed now. Hey, well, listen, guys. Thanks again, man. It was a lot of fun on Monday Night Sports Talk. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Chad. Have a great one, man.
Okay, you too.